Hey, everybody. Just wanted to build on the video that you just watched and talk about the language that I'll use in this class as we start to engage in philosophical methodology, what it is that we're going to be doing here. So I use the three C's. I think that this is just an easy way to remember the steps in philosophical methodology. You should learn in your science classes the scientific method. We'll talk a little bit more about that later because philosophy is similar in a lot of ways. But we use a simplified methodology. So let me go over the three C's. And we'll come back to this over and over and over again this year. So the first C is comprehension. And this is the question of whether or not you understand what it is that you're hearing or reading or seeing. We want to be, as Hank Green said, as charitable as possible when we are reading people's arguments or listening to people's arguments. We really want to try and understand what they're arguing. This is before we're deciding whether we agree or disagree. We need to understand what they are saying before we can be critical of what they're saying. This is a step that we often skip, and we'll just jump right into attacking somebody's idea without a proper understanding of what it is that we are attacking. So we want to make sure that we do not do that. So we struggle. Sometimes we'll spend entire class periods struggling with comprehension because we want to make sure that if we are critical of an idea, we're actually critical of the idea, not some parody of the idea or some straw man of the idea. We want to know that we really, truly understand what it is that someone is arguing. So I want you to take a minute right now. Can you think of a time when you didn't do that and you were critical of someone's argument before you really understood them? And how did that go? Has there been a time or two, I know in my life there has been, when I thought I understood what somebody was saying and I rushed into attack and turns out I didn't really understand what they were saying. So can you think of a time when you were critical of someone's argument or ideas before you really understood them? All right, and share that experience. Okay, the second C is criticism. Once you've asked all those clarifying questions, made sure that you understand the terms, make sure that you understand the context, make sure that you understand appropriately everything that someone is trying to say in their argument, then it's time to think critically about it. We're going to do a whole unit on logic and critical thinking. We're going to learn how to reason well. We're not only going to learn how to do good reasoning for ourselves, but hopefully we're going to learn how to explain and teach good reasoning to other people. There are a lot of mistakes that people make in their reasoning. And if we can help people to see the mistakes that they're making in their reasoning, it's easier for us to then apply criticism. So we're going to learn there's rules of good thinking. It's a lot like math. If you apply logic correctly, it's incredibly reliable. Okay, so what I want you to do right now is think about what do you already know about logic and critical thinking? Have you learned about fallacies? Have you learned about syllogisms? What do you already know? Share that next. All right, and finally, we get to the third C, and sometimes we make it here, but usually we don't. We spend most of our time living in those first two C's. But this is the point at which we begin to have original thoughts. We'll see this year. I'll let you play around with some original ideas. But most of us have not thought enough about any one thing to have a serious contender for the truth that hasn't already been explored by some thinker. Okay, so this is the point at which you start to see how the ideas that you've been wrestling with might manifest in your own life. How do they apply to your own life? You might be able to synthesize multiple ideas and come up with new claims. This is the creative part of philosophy, and it's the result of deep, deep contemplation. So you really think about and almost meditate upon some of the ideas and some of the claims that you've been presented with, and they will often lead to, it's at this point that you'll often decide to accept or reject a line of thinking. So those are the three C's. That's what we're going to be using. So what's our goal? What are we trying to do? Well, as a class, we're working together to find the best answers. In fact, that's what philosophers throughout all of history have been working together to do. This is a team sport. It's not a competition. It will seem like a competition because we'll have different ideas of what the best answers are. But you got to remember, ultimately, our goal is to come up with the best answers. If you can help me critically evaluate my claims, I should not be mad at you. I should be thanking you. I should be shaking your hand for showing me that there was a problem with my thinking. So it's not personal. It shouldn't be emotional. What we're looking for is for good candidates for the truth. We may never agree on the ultimate truth that we are looking for, but we can probably agree on some things that are good candidates and other things that are not so good candidates. And that's what we're doing. So I want you to remember, as we start to get into our whole class discussions, small group discussions, we'll sometimes have one-on-one discussions, that we are all on the same team. We're looking for the best answers. Philosophy is a team sport, and we're endeavoring together. So I'm excited to get started on this path with you guys, and we'll talk about this very shortly.